empowering marginalized communities and fostering inclusive policies. We're so honored to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning. I was thinking what am I going to talk about, and then just understanding that we're just starting this morning just with me, and you're probably going to have a really long day. I'll make it a little bit easier and change it. I'll twist it a little bit. So good morning. Thank you for having me. We were just talking where I'm coming from, and I said I'm coming from Period, next to Haifa, traveling almost 3 hours to get here. But it's always a pleasure, really. It's always a pleasure meeting groups and talking about our work, but also doing what we do every day, especially after 7th of October. You appreciate the fact that you are influencing in policy and doing the best as you can. So I would like to divide my thoughts and my things to 3, as we used to do in the Army service. Talk a little bit about a journey, and then talk about who are the people that we are willing to keep around us in order to do what we are doing. And the third thing will be the lesson that we are picking all the way our journey to be who we are, remembering where we're coming from, what we are doing, and then what is the legacy that we are living after or would like to live after, no matter where we go, okay? So I'll start by saying that I'm the youngest from 13 kids, to a very unique family, a very Zionist, ideologic, Jewish community back then in Ethiopia. But I'm also the first to go to school, graduated high school, university, and serving in the military, and then getting to the government offices. So being the first also, it's a heavy job to have, really. You always know that there's someone who's looking up to you, who is judging you, or even, doing his research, whatever you are doing. This is the place that we want to be, where we want to go. And being the first is also being a role model. So you don't have really the privilege to have mistakes or to regret or not to choose to do what you are doing in a big thing, in a big way. I was always a curious child, no matter what. I ask questions. Nothing is not going to satisfy me if somebody will say, just like that, even coming from a very religious family, asking why God said this, why it's have written in the Torah like this. I mean, I need answers, deep answers, not just saying, believe what you believe in, that's it. And I think this is the thing that saved me all the way through my life, asking questions, not to be, not just to have one answer, but also explore more. And I remember that I did my journey from my village through Sudan to the refugee camp and then to Israel. I saw my journey as an adventure, looking up answers, looking up what is the new thing that we're going to explore, etc. And I think just because of that, I survived the journey by walking 3 weeks to Sudan, bare feet, going to take this journey without knowing if you're going to be there or not, if you're going to survive it or not. Even I had 3 brothers who did Aliyah before we did, but we never heard about them, so we don't know if they made it or not. And doing a journey to Jerusalem, not to Eretz Israel, because this is something that you weren't familiar with, and understanding that you're going to see the gold city and the honey city, etc., but nobody actually told you how hard it's going to be, how many people you're going to lose, how you're going to be there. And we were trusting people who were familiar with the road, but we didn't believe that we're going to be there. But my parents had their faith and their vision and their thoughts, and they believed on the right way to do it, because we were always also the last family who left the village. So my dad was, as the head of the community, he wanted to make sure that everybody will go out and will be the last to leave. A model of leadership. And after 3 weeks, when we arrived to the refugee camp in Sudan, and we weren't allowed to talk about Judaism and our being Zionists, Deborah, I learned that a refugee camp is not something that I really wish to my enemies, even though. For some people who doesn't believe or understand what is a refugee camp, I do not wish you to do so. But staying there for 9 months, I learned 3 things. Every single day, there was a truck coming into the center of the camp, and on the truck, there was 2 people who was throwing bread, and we called them Bani. And the kids who have been there more than a year told me that if you jump high enough, you will get some bread, so you can have something to bring into the family for food. So I started jumping. Until today, I do jump really high, I have to say. And the second thing is that I was wondering what the kids are doing the whole day, because I was about 6 years old. And we learned that the soldiers of the Sudanians it was a very hot desert, very hot camp. The hot and the heat, it's not bearable at all. So when they wanted to deliver a message to their commander, to their base, they're gonna use us. In return, we got some candies, some little small money, etc. So that's what we did. But we weren't allowed to go alone, especially if you are a girl, because they can kidnap you, etc., etc., as you're familiar with the safety of women in those kind of places. And the third thing is that I was looking at reaching out, what is different between us being a Jewish at the refugee camp to the rest of the people who was there. And what I saw is like keeping on Shabbat, okay? Even though it's pikuach nefesh and you can eat and you can cook, especially in those kind of places, we have been approved as children to eat a warm food on Shabbat, but my parents never did. They never did. They never touched it. And they always make excuses to keep their Judaism, but telling lots of stories behind of it. Like say, oh, we don't have enough fire, so we're taking fire from the neighbors or using the fire. We do not do this ceremony of coffee that the Ethiopian community used to do, but others do. So we're gonna go there and say, right, even though we are not drinking it, but we are there. So, but the rest of people actually trust and believe that it's not something unique, so our Judaism haven't been recovered. After 9 months, in a very unique way, we arrived to Jerusalem. And I know every Jewish community see these kind of pictures when they are going out from the plane, wearing the beautiful clothes, white clothes, and going down to the ground and kiss the land, right? Everybody knows this familiar picture. What the kids are doing, because nobody have that kind of picture. Okay, I will tell you. We were looking the gold that everybody was talking about. So imagine bunch of kids digging at the Ben Gurion airport to find gold, but there's no gold, right? So somebody was fooling us because we were kids. We were so naive, and this is what we learned all the time, the gold city, etc. And I think if I divide my life before Israel and after, I would learn that in one hand, I had a very beautiful, unique childhood, and then I had a new immigrant life that I need to start with, but with a lot of opportunities. Because back then, I couldn't go to school. As a woman, I was supposed to provide the help at home and help the other one. I was working since I was 5, even earlier than that. I went to the river to bring some water. I deliver food or lunch to my brother and my father in the field. I have 3 kids that I need to pay them to go out and take the trash today. So I was doing that. And when I got to Israel, what I learned is that I got the chance to go to school, right? I can teach, I can learn, I can do something, right? Different than I used to be. I don't need to get married very young, which I might be if I would stay there. I might be even be grandmother by today. Yeah, but the chance of going to school also taught me that as a new immigrant in a new country, you need to learn the structure of the society, the language, the system. And understanding that it was really, really hard to do because there is a new language that you have to learn. And Hebrew, trust me, no matter how many years you're gonna be here, it's a very hard language. But also the culture of the Israeli society. Let me give you an example. When we speak to our parents, we do not look in their eyes. It's not polite to do. Here, if you don't do that, you're punished. Why you are not looking in my eyes when I'm talking to you, right? The differences between the cultures. And the other thing is that when you come to visit someone, okay, no matter who, I can come and visit my sister, who is older than me by a year, and she'll come in and I immediately stand up and give her my place. This is a respect, right? And what we learned is that instead of doing that, the elders are standing up and give the kids the place to sit, which is totally rude to do, okay? How you handle that? So for us as the children, it was much easier, but for our parents, it's not really necessary or nice to do. And the other thing is that if you want to be in Israeli, you have to be a very chutzpah, right? Ask questions. Yes, sometimes I use the words thanks and please. But also understand that I need to look like the Israelis. Wear like that, behave like that, talk like that, right? Which means I was kind of ashamed of who I am, where I'm coming from, and what I'm wearing, who are my parents, and so on. And the main issue to deal with it was when you go to school, because I was translating to my parents every single word because my parents couldn't pick up with the Hebrew. And I was translating to the bank, to the hospitals, everything that you can imagine. And then when they come to the school, you also have to translate what the teacher is saying, right? This is the time when you are not a good student, tell all the opposites. But understanding the fact that I'm much Israeli than Ethiopian, when I wanted to go to high school, to the Ulpana, I needed to take an exam, and I was very not satisfied with the results that my teacher said, oh, do us a favor, don't go there because you're gonna be failing and it's gonna embarrass our school. And I was like, how am I embarrassing school? A week before I was the best student, you brought so many visitors and donors to present, and I was presenting, and now I'm not good enough. And I was so frustrated, and I went back home to talk to whom? With whom? My parents didn't understand, because for them, the government knows better what is my needs, how to solve these things. And my parents weren't involved because I didn't let them to be involved earlier because I was the one who's translated. But also the system didn't really recruit them to be part of my life. So I remember when my brother said, you know what, you were translating and signing in your stead of your parents for everything, so sign this paper, take the exam, you'll see the results, and I did. I was waiting for the results, and after 3 days I got it, and I was so happy. I didn't care about the results. I didn't care about getting into that school or not, even though it's #1 school for girls. I was just interested to show that teacher that in one word, you can build a student or destroy him. That's it. I didn't care about anything else. So I told my parents, wear your best suits. We go into the school, and my parents thought that I'm gonna be the excellent student who's getting her diploma, but it wasn't, right? And we went, and we got it, and I gave the envelope to my teacher and my principal, etc., and they said, wow, it's unbelievable. And my teacher said, how is that possible? And she was my teacher. So I decided to take this teacher to be the person that somebody tell me that you can't, and no, I'll find a way to show that it's possible, okay? Every time I have this kind of challenge, I will put aside a note and say, this is Ziva, okay? That was her name. Ziva said no. What did I do? What should I do? Where's the window? Where's the door? What kind of solution? I will do my best. Yes, I might not get there at the end of it. Maybe I couldn't find a solution for that specific problem, but at least I tried. I didn't say no from the beginning.
I went to that school, I started school, after 6 months, I just disappeared. Why? Because the differences between me and the students. Our point of view were different. Our starts were different. They weren't equal, okay? In order to get the results and the terms to that school, I needed to have the same opportunity of the beginning. I didn't have that. But I couldn't also go back and say to my parents, you know, I went to the girls' school, I was in it, but I dropped out. I couldn't tell them that. So what I did is that I told them, I'm not going to the boarding school. It's an open school. And trust me, it's not a lie at all. It's open school. So I woke up, left home with a bag with a lot of books, 6 in the morning, came back at 6 in the evening. But I didn't go to school. I went to the beach. I went to the library. I volunteered to help elders. I did everything that I could possibly do, not just staying in the neighborhood, because that was a rough neighborhood. I saw my friends going in a deep, deep troubles, which I didn't want to go into. But I couldn't disappoint my parents after fighting to go to that school and not being engaged to anybody, to tell them that I dropped school. But after 6 months, I need to bring my diploma to my parents because there is a huge ceremony. Now, as a mother, I can understand that. And I didn't have any. So I was sitting in one of the, in front of the building that my parents live. There is a bus station. So I was sitting at the bus station, crying my heart out and talking to the building. And I said, so what do you say? Should I go up and tell my dad that I do not have a diploma and I was lying for the past 6 months? And the building is answering me. And he said, of course, I'm just not sure that you're gonna live later on. And I was crying, and then a woman came across with a very huge accent, English accent, and she said, what happened to you? And I said, good. Being Israeli is taking opportunities, right? Free psychology. Tell her everything. And I did. And she was listening. And it was wonderful. And then she said, that is not a huge problem. I'll find you a school. I haven't met her before, ever, okay? I'll find you a school by the end of the summer. And now, let me take my dog home and I'll come to your dad and we'll explain to him. And I said, wonderful, he will kill her. I will have another day. What fabulous time, right? And she did. She came, she was sitting in the living room. My brother was translating because I was too afraid to talk. My mom thought that she never ate, so she went back and forth from the kitchen to bring everything that is in the refrigerator so she might be eating. And my dad was sitting there and he was listening, and she promised him 2 things. First, she'll find me a good school to go to and I will graduate high school. And the second thing that she said, that let her come to my house every time she needs, because I live not far away. You can come and see my house, you can trust me. Here's my phone, here's my private phone, whatever. But the last term was to me, okay? I needed to take her dog 3 times a day for a walk. I needed to go every day for an hour and a half English lesson, which I'm really grateful for that. And every Friday, when she's teaching kids, I need to be the one who is tutoring those kids and practice my English. So yes, I got a school. I went to a boarding school, a non-religious boarding school. And as soon as my father heard that, he said, okay, that's it. I had enough of you. Not being religious was like the red line that you couldn't cross, but I did. I went to school. I got in. I started to study. And then I realized, and I was asking myself, why is this happening to me? And I'm the only person who is having these divided questions about being Ethiopian, being Israeli, maybe being just late, why my parents are not involved, etc., etc. I'm finding myself in so many identity issues that I couldn't figure it out. And then the Ministry of Education said, you know, you can do a paperwork of a very high level rank questions as a researcher at the university in any subject that you can choose. And I said, this is the one I want to research. I want to research myself. I want to understand what is happening to me. So every Wednesday I went up to university to Hebrew University. I did my research about the relationship between parents, school or sister, and me. How we make sure they will be connected to each other. How do I make sure that my parents understand that I'm the same kid that they were raising, just my values are the same values, they just called differently. They are adopted to the Israeli society. Okay, I'm still a very proud Ethiopian Jew who live in Israel. I do, but my language and my parents' language were different. How do I communicate with them? How do I make sure they will be involved? But at the same thing, how do I make sure that the schools and the system will understand that my identity is important for me in order to study and educate myself? So after a year, I learned that I'm not special at all. It happens to every immigrant. And it doesn't matter where he's coming from. Persian, Yemen, United States, Russian, even the Israeli who have been pulled out of his home and he went and taken to a boarding school. Everybody is having their own issues when it got to do identity. So I developed this model having someone who is helping to those kids, and the Minister of Education adopted it. I think it's working until today. And I went back to my parents. I apologized in an Ethiopian way, which is a hard way to do. But I learned about myself that not just knowing where I'm coming from is important, but also learning what is the journey that I did to become who I am today. So I got Ziva, who said, no, it's impossible. There is no way to do it my way, right? And then I got this woman who was my psychologist at first, and then my adopted mother later on, Ada, who was the one to show me that there is a way to go through, a path to adopt. And then I have my parents who were my guidelines, okay, all the way, no matter what I did, where I went. And then I joined the army. I love the fact that I was in the army, and I've been released as a second lieutenant. And then I was buying my first ticket to travel all over the world. I'm gonna make it a little bit short so you'll have time also to ask questions if you want. And I always dreamed to go to Italy because I'm working since I was 9 in Israel. And my first job was at the shuk, at the market in Netanya, where I grew up. So my dad, my biggest brother, who is older than I am, 3 years I think, was working next to me, and he was, handling the heavy things, and my job was much harder. I was wrapping the oranges. And in one of the newspapers, there was a picture of a very handsome guy sitting on a motorbike, holding a pizza, and it says the best pizza in Italy. That's why I bought my ticket to Italy. Without understanding what I'm gonna say, and then a friend called me and he said, Oshra, Rashi Foundation, which is the biggest foundation in Israel, looking for someone to build a huge program for students. I think you should go to the interview. And I said, Micha, darling, I'm leaving in a week to Italy. I have a ticket to turn back. Not yet anyway. But I went. I was wearing my best suit, pair of shoes, jeans, t-shirt, a lot of rasta, for those who understand what it means. Not a very looking girl. I took the train, went to Lod, went up to the 4th floor. I was sitting there and I was looking at myself, my reflection from the floor, and I said, oh my God, I do not wear the right clothes. But okay, you're already here, so look a smart one, right? Grab something, read something. So I was holding the Jerusalem Post upside down for 10 minutes. And then a guy went through and he was looking at me like, what the hell she's doing here? He didn't say anything. This is my way to translate what he said. I went into the interview, and after 10 minutes he stopped me and he said, I owe you an apology. I said, about what? And he said, I judged you. I never thought that you can be like this. You can talk like this, okay? I said my Savior, right? Somebody recommended for you to interview me, right? But still you can't. And then I realized that no matter what I will do, there is differences between the way I see myself and the way others looking at me or thinking about me. How judgmental we are. How do we define ourselves? How we change the state of mind that whatever your eyes is seeing is not the same thing that your mind is doing. but what they do, they reflect. But it's not a wrong thing, because this is the way we have been raised, right? We have been judged and judging over the years. But we are willing to change that, because once we know each other, we have more than common things than differences. And we can also agree not to agree on those differences, right? And all the way back home to Haifa, I was convincing my agency to cancel the ticket, because if you want me to express his apology, I want that job. And I even didn't know what the job is, right? We didn't get there. So arguing that she wants 70%, I got this call and asking me, how much do you want? When you can start, what do you need to start? And I said, oh my God, when I know what I need, I don't know what the job is, so I don't know what do I need. But how much do I want to earn? Nobody ever asked me how much my knowledge is worth. So I pick up the phone to everyone that I thought that I know and I'm familiar with. I add the 70% to the ticket, and I started a few months later, and I worked for Rashi Foundation, working with education systems, colleges, universities, also with the population of the North and the South region, who are the first in the family to go to university, to college, as much as I was, right? Understanding the importance of knowledge and academic diploma in order to get the right job, to build your life from the beginning. And that's why being first is hard, because it's a mission, okay? It's a mission of your life to be the first. After doing that 16 years, it sounds like 16 minutes. I remember I went to LA for a very big event of women's philanthropy that was happening in LA, and I was the keynote, and after speaking, came down and somebody asked me, you know, my whole life, and I skipped that, but I promise if next time you will be here, I will do it specifically, but my whole life, no matter where I went, everybody used to ask me, what's your dream? And I was laughing about it, because I didn't have the time to dream. I was busy to survive in the Israeli society, right? But when that woman, after I spoke, I went onto the stage and she came to me and I said, I was part of the new Aliyah who brought the Ethiopian Jew to Israel. Everybody had a part, okay? Everybody, no matter where I go, yes, you were the part of our journey to Israel. Yes, everybody volunteers somehow. And it's okay, because I believe that they do. And then she said, I did this and I did this, so what's next? What's your dream? And I said, you know what, this is the first time that I can tell you that I have a dream. And I promised before I go home, I will give you the answer, which I didn't have at the moment. And I remember that I said that's it, 16 years at Rashi Foundation, I should change another career, I should do something else. And I remember I called my husband, who I met at the boarding school that I went to, and I said, you know, Taki, I need to take a vacation. Can I be at home at least a year doing nothing? And he said, you can stay at home even 3 years, but as I know you, 2 days will be enough. And I came back. I sent my letter of organization to the Rashi Foundation saying that I had enough. I had the privilege and the honor to support more than 10,000 students all over, single mothers, youth who have no parents, etc., etc. And I need to do something else. And that was the first time that I slept really so many hours that I never slept before. And after 2 days, I started my first position, okay? 3 years of vacation, I went to 1 day of vacation, which is nice. And then in 2015, there was a huge demonstration about racism against Ethiopian, etc. I joined the force. This is something that I want to really reflect by saying that it's not Ethiopian demonstration, it's demonstration to prevent racism in every kind that you can imagine, because everybody is having it. And one thing that I learned is that you can go against, but it's much easier to talk around the table and find the right solution. And what we needed to do is to build the trust between the government and the community. Because without that, you can shout and you can demonstrate every single day, but talking to each other and find the solution, this is the very heavy job. So I join my friends and I recruit everyone that I can. even the police department and the justice ministry, and we did all this in order to prevent this situation by programs, by cultural teaching and learning, working with the kids, providing the rights of the community, but also what you need to do by law, etc. And also make sure the government will adopt the huge report. If you want it, I can send it to you. How to prevent racism against the Ethiopian, but also starting from a very young age to teach the differences and the tallness, etc., etc. And after that, I found myself working at the media somehow, at Channel 10, which is one of the biggest, used to be one of the biggest channels in Israel, talking about what we need as a society to do a better thing in our community, because I'm proud to be Ethiopian, Jewish, Israeli woman. I am, no matter where I go. And I think we do as an Israeli have a lot of good things that we are doing, but we are not talking about it. And those who need us need to hear about this more. And after that, I joined my job as a Deputy Director General of the Authority of Status of Women. It's a long, long name, I have to say. And I'm doing it for 7 years. And I have to say that being shlicha of the government is one of the biggest closure that I can think and imagine. Because in one hand, you serve as a government worker, or servant. And the other thing is that you're bringing what you learn from the fields and listening to what the field needs, not just talking about them, talking with them, okay? All the answers are out there. Nobody really owns it. But if we gather everyone, we can understand the situation, the cause, and also provide answers. So I work in a lot of subjects that are difficult. In violence against women, the horrible thing that you can imagine. How many women have been murdered over a year? And what kind of solutions that we have since COVID and then 7th of October and what we are dealing. How much none of the women's rights movements all over doesn't really support of what happened to us at 7th of October, because it happens to us today, it can happen to anyone tomorrow, unfortunately, but we are alone on this side. And then at the same time, also provide programs for education since they are young, showing role models, because if you don't see role model, you cannot be like. You won't be able to dream, okay? I didn't have a role model. I thought that I didn't have a role model, right? But if you don't see it on TV, you don't read about it in a newspaper, you are not learning it at school, you do not believe that there are a few that you can look up and say, I can do this and even more than that, okay? So my job is so divided in so many ways, but one of the things that I'm really working in the last few years is how to make sure there will be more women in every table that you can think and imagine. And we are missing that. Because if we are 50%, 51% of the population, 51% should have the opportunity to be heard loud and clear in every subject, not just being heard, but also the way decisions have been made will be suitable for women in anything that you can imagine, okay? So I was talking about how a journey is not ending. I don't feel like I had enough of it. I have a long way to go through, but I learned over the years that I wanna keep people who will tell me what I need to hear, not what I want. There's a huge difference. That there are a few of them, like Ziva, like Ada, and a few others. For those who want me to hear what I need to hear, and pick up the things that I need on my way. And the other thing is that there is a way to get there. And when I say that, I said that I live up north, and my office is in Jerusalem. How many questions I got when I got this job? Who's gonna do the laundry for the kids? Who's gonna cook for your husband? I said, well, we are in 2025, he can cook. And he can do laundry too, right? But when they joined the military service for several weeks, nobody asked me, how do you manage? Do you have any help? Nobody asked me that, ever, okay? How do you get rid of these stereotypes, okay? But saying that also, understanding as a woman that every time you go on high level, there is a thing that you have to work on yourself, and it's your caution and understanding that you won't be able to provide everything and be everywhere, and understand that it's okay. It's okay. Share it to everyone. Which means you might be the only person in the room, but I imagine that there is another 10 in it. You might be the only person who says something and gets of everyone. Bring along with you a few, not just to support you, to share with you the ideas and thoughts, to share with you the road, because it's important. And this is a very hard thing to do when you don't have a lot of women in those kind of positions. And this is our job to make sure there will be more. Questions? Yes.
Going back to your job, I think you said with Rashi where you're hoping people going into college that were the first ones in their family. What kind of challenges are they facing when they're the first person in their family getting a degree that they need help with?
So let's say it starts, I'll do it differently. Before I got to Rashi Foundation, I was fell in love with the academic and the universities, etc. when I did my previous job as a high school, as I told you. So I loved it, and I always knew that I want to go to college or university. But the first thing is understanding what is the win-win by going to those kind of systems, okay? And the other thing is that learning what is the right subject or the high department is right for you, okay? And if you weren't in the army and practicing it, it's even harder because, let's say, I went to the military service, I knew what I wanted to be, okay? And my brothers, we are from 13 alive, 9, let's say 6 brothers and 3 girls, that's including me. My sister didn't go school to the army, so I was the only girl who went to the army. But my brothers served in a very specific units. But the only reason that they got into those units, not just because they understand the importance of it, because the color of the shoes was nice, the commander behavior was nice. This is the way to understand that. And the same thing when you go to university, okay? What kind of subjects you're gonna choose, not even calculated on the fact what is the job that you wanna provide at the end of it. What is the workplace that you wanna go into. So first give them those kind of advice and the support, because you're gonna be the only person in the neighborhood who's gonna be in the university, which means they are not taking you seriously. They don't understand the importance of it, okay? And sometimes when you are alone, you're always working on convincing others to join you, because it's much easier not to be there. It's much easier to go around the neighborhood and do nothing. And the other thing is the financial support, if you have a scholarship or not. If you don't have it, you have to work, study, and it's a hard thing to do, really hard thing to do. When I, after a few years of being a Rashi Foundation, I think it was on the 7th year, I decided that I want to explore and meet my students. One of the things that I did always, and this is something that whether you have it or not in your gene, is being very sensitive to people, okay, to read their faces. And I felt like my students, even though they were all over the country, and I had coordinator in each one of the universities and the colleges, I wanted to do a home visit. I wanted to see what they are dealing. And the first thing that I used to do, and it sounds really, really rude as I describe it right now, trust me, it wasn't. It's like I went to the refrigerator to see what is in the refrigerator, okay? I went to their room to see where they are sleeping. And seeing a single mother that I support her in scholarship to come and study, but the kids are sleeping on the floor without any bed, or the refrigerator doesn't have that much of food, I know she's not gonna be very concentrated in her study, right? So how do we provide those needs just to keep her going and study, because it means when she graduated and she's having her own BA or master, she will be able to work in a worthy place and earn much more money to provide to her family, and also to break down the circle, because if she goes to study, the kids are looking at her, looking up at her and saying, and as one of the kids told me, but he was in his bagrut, I don't know how to say it, yes, and he was looking at it, and he was always sleeping on the sofa, he didn't go to school, and when he saw his mother struggling with English and also succeeding, and she is already on the second year of her studying, you know, I remember the conversation that I had with him, and he said, do I have a privilege not to study at all after looking at my mom? If she goes to the university, I can do the technion without any problem. And this is the most exciting thing that you can hear, because you know that you have the results, the fresh fruit of the results right there. So it's providing the necessary and the ability to go to school, also provides some financial support, but also emotional support, and make sure that when they go there, a few of the struggles were completion there. You know, you have to have a very good English to go to the university. So all the courses have been paid differently, and they cost a lot of money, but also help them to succeed on that field. And the last year is much important, because when the last year, it's not just completing your BA, but also understanding what is the next thing that you want to do. If you don't have a workplace to go into, you'll find it very hard to apply to a job. And I would say on this part also, when you are a new immigrant, it's harder 4 times more than the others. And we can go to the same unit in the army, have the same graduated of university with the same results, best ones than ever. But when you go to a workforce, we'll have a struggle. The differences between us will be shown up very fast. If you're Ethiopian, if you're Haredi, if you're Arabic, and so on. Right? Yes.
So we're about 30, 40 years from the major Ethiopian aliyah to Israel. And I was kind of curious for your perspective, like how the community is doing, how they're integrating, how like 40 years on, what are the successes, what are the challenges? So remaining just like make the Ethiopians feel fully Israeli, I guess, or do they already feel fully Israeli?
Well, that's a hard question.
It is a big
It
question.
depends who you are asking. I'm not presenting 170,000 Ethiopians.
It's a snapshot of the
Yes,
area.
but I can tell you they are integrated in the military service. They are integrated in the universities, even in the force of workplaces. But I think they are staggering. Let's say, as we talk about the differences between men and women. All right, women are very succeeded. They catch up the language very fast. They understand the system very much. They are integrated very much. They also, the Minister of Education and the finance at home, so that's the reason. I think most of us are, right? But I can tell you that after 40 years, just yesterday, 2 of our, I don't know how to call it, they became professors. 2 of are very succeeded in academic field. That's after 40 years, which doesn't make any sense, right? After 40 years, you should see a lot of CEOs in companies, a lot of Knesset members, and there's only 3, right? A lot of even deputy directors in Ministry of Public Service, and also the authorities. You don't see that. You don't see that much. And I think it's got to do with 3 reasons. First, I think it's a matter of stereotypes. Okay. I'll be careful on what I'm saying, so you won't get it in a bad idea. But we can apply to the same judge, but I will be judged more than you do. Okay, you cannot deny the fact of my skin color, where I'm coming from, and the idea of who I am. But I will be judged before I spoke, before somebody read who I am, etc., etc. I can tell you when I'm coming to meetings with my workies, and they are talking to them because they are the deputy directors instead of me. I'm just a helper, all right? They are. It's not their fault. I'm not judging anybody, okay? My job is to educate the profession that we have on that field. And the other thing is that we are too polite, too much polite. We do not demand more than we deserve. And this is something that I don't want to change the culture of it because there is a beauty in it, but also give them the tool when it's right to use it or not right to use it. And it's something that you have to teach in a very, very young age, but at least when they are in, let's say, high school, etc. And the last thing that I would say is, if 15 years ago identity was an issue, it's not an issue at all. There is a lot of proud Ethiopian Israeli Jew in Israel who is not going not left, not right. They are not confused who they are, what they are, and proud of it. The problem is starting with their young kids. When you're not teaching about the Ethiopian community at school, people are not understanding the importance of the community. Just imagine building a very huge puzzle and you're taking out something, you'll always be missing it, okay? If you're not talking about the Druze, students wouldn't understand. They will meet it for the first time somewhere and they will be in shock, okay? The same thing with everyone. For someone who didn't meet Haredi family, he wouldn't understand what it means, all right? So we need to provide it when they are, being integrated, it's work for both ways, okay? Who is integrated in what or where, okay? That's a huge question. But I think we did a lot of progress in so many fields, and I think this is the beauty. We don't show it, it's not out there, people are not familiar with, and this is something that we need to work on really, really hard. But I was also say I'm being careful because there is places that they take advantage of it and say, I have a very unique Ethiopian guy, but he's the only one in, let's say, 100 or 1,500 workers, you have only one. He doesn't present all of us. And when someone asks me in a meeting, you are professional about the Ethiopian community, and I say, no, I'm not. I'm not. We do not think the same. We do not see things the same. We might be from the same community, but we're not presenting everyone. So in order to talk with, you have to bring them into the room and see the difference of the thoughts and the ideas of it. Right? Yeah.
Does your ministry or your position acknowledge like the differences between men and women and like their different strengths, or do they view both genders as one and the same?
Okay, so the authority of status of women is established to promote women first. Okay, it's we are working about violence against women. We're talking about pay gap because women we earn 34% less than a man in the same position, the same status, etc. We talk about promoting laws and government decisions regarding to women. But at the same time, I would say that gender equality won't be provided and will be happen without men being involved. Violence against women will not be prevent without men getting involved because it's a matter of everyone. Let me give you an example of what happened. I just came back from Austria after taking a very huge conference that talk about preventing murder of women but also girls. We are working only with 18 and up because the others are going with the Ministry of Education. And one of the things that we were talking is that one of the things in order to work with that field is to make sure that we talk to boys how to talk about their feelings, right? I'm a mother of 3. I have a daughter who is 22, 17, and 16, and yes, I look young, I'm counting on it. Well, you have Ethiopian gene. And I know how it's hard for boys to talk about the way they feel, how to talk respectfully, where is the red lines go, and etc. And this is not something that we are working on it. So you can talk about gender equality, but let's talk about what is a good relationship between boys and girls should look like. What is your rights? What is something that when you say no, what do you mean when you say no? Okay, for both sides. Okay, even if you promote legal issues, we do not want to harm men. We don't, in order to give rights to women. It should go to the both ways, okay? If we see it's only going to one side, it's a wrong thing to do. Let's say I work a lot with authorities. I run all the 258 authorities. In each one of them, I have someone who's advisor for gender equality to the mayor, the CEO. And one of the things that we did last year with the Minister of Welfare, we provide a program to prevent violence against women. And one of the programs that was in the huge program was a circle of men, okay? Men do not join to those circles to talk about violence. If they will see status of women or welfare, they are not gonna get there. But if you call them to have a cup of beer with a group of men, they will join us, right? So we use all those kinds of a very triggered way to bring them into the table and understand, oh, so when I got divorced and I said this and this and this, I actually was harming myself and my kids, right? She didn't say anything. This is the way to understand what happened. And also to talk about how I feel. I'm not alone on this field. And not to be afraid of what people say about me. And one of the second thing that we were providing at this conference was, did you know that in the whole world, but especially in Israel, there is no dashboard to show the numbers of gender violence. Let's say if you ask Minister of Affairs how many women are suffering from violence, it will say one number, NGOs will say different number, etc. etc. As I said, why? Let's take everything in and build this dashboard, because you can go in and see who is suffering what kind of violence, what is the patterns of the violence, in which age, what education, which sector of the community. Because when you understand by numbers the situation, you will be able to promote and change the policy. You can give solutions. If you are talking different numbers, which means you do not understand the situation in our own country. And this is the first one that have been built, that the data is collected from ministries in the government offices, but also NGOs. Why? Because most of them go to NGOs to get help. It's a matter of trust, okay? So we have to have those two data. And I thought that there is, out there, the countries who have been developed in so many ways will have this kind of database, but they don't. So we were the first to build it, the first to present it and teach everyone, but also to present it to ministries to understand the situation. So next time, and even those who are against at the beginning, they are coding us all the time, but if you want to promote program in order to prevent violence against women, you should use this dashboard because you have the data already and the understanding.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good time.
I'm Julie Weissman from Nishmat. You're leaving a path of light and motivation and inspiration for everyone to follow you.
Thank you.
And I wish I could follow you all over the world. Here at Nishmat, for the last 25 years, we have a program to advance Ethiopian Israeli women, to push them farther, higher, and to accomplish their dreams, to get them into college, to give them all the tools, the English tutoring, and the living stipend, so that they don't have to work on the side, so that they can manage their degrees. We have them living here on our campus, doing academic advancements, getting through their degrees, and then helping them to get into the workforce. We have a professional advancement program, mentoring them once they step into the workforce, so they have all the tools and role models to hopefully one day become the next Oshra. and creating this community of successful Ethiopian Israeli women who can be role models to their communities. And I know that many, many, many of our students who have succeeded, they have had an influence already on their younger siblings, on their cousins. It's a ripple effect that's that expands out when you see someone like Oshra, when you see an Ethiopian Israeli woman who not only succeeded and got a degree, but she has a high level degree, and now she's a lawyer, or now she's a doctor, or now she's an OT, or now she's any profession you can think of. She's having an impact on her community. She's a leader, and she is creating a brighter future for Israel. So we're very privileged to have Oshra, and I feel like you're like singing our mission.